Next steps. You have at this point roughed out a sketch, two sides, either in your sketchbook or on copy paper. And I'm working on copy paper. Copy paper is definitely harder to work on. The finish of the paper is different than that of drawing paper, so it's a little more difficult to blend, but it's definitely doable. So I have my photograph. You're looking at your iPads, and I want you to remember the value worksheet that you worked on a couple of weeks ago. So think about each value being like 10% all the way up to 100%. And that 100% being your darkest dark. And if you go back to that sphere we worked on, think about the brightest areas being the highlight, and there's a transitional mid-tone area, and then there's this core of the shadow. And you notice that if this is the highlight, then all those other values follow that same shape. So this is the edge of the shape, then that mid-tone follows the shape, and then the core of the shadow. So let's take a look at my photograph. So my photograph's a little bit different. The light is coming from this side, and so I have some light coming off of the sphere on this side here, and here's my midtones, and then here's my darker shadow. And you can see, if you squint at your photo, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to decipher the darkest darks and the lightest lights. I'm putting a piece of tracing paper over this so I can see, and I'm actually going to draw some lines over those shapes. So that's my highlight, and you can see how it curved around that shape. And then here's my cone, and you can see there's a little bit of shadow on this side, and then there's this highlight here, and then there's a reflected light shadow on the other side. But this is the core highlight here. And then the face of this cube has a lot of light on it. And the cubes, some of the forms were dirty, so don't get confused with that. And then the front of this rectangle has a lot of value on it. But I don't want to make it a solid color. I want to be careful with that. But the key thing in here is seeing that highlight and understanding how it wraps around the circle. So before you start putting any kind of value down, remember, add value slowly, work it up. Do not start with 100% and work your way backwards. Start with the 10% and work your way up from there. I'm going to work on this cylinder first. I'm trying to set this up so that I'm not over the... Okay, so I'm going to follow the side of this shape that I made to make this shadow. And notice I'm using the side of my pencil. I'm not using the point. I have it laying to the side. And one of my lights is going off and on. I apologize. I have a electrical issue. So I'm not sure how well you can see that right now. But you can see that the side of the pencil, when you sharpen it, it's much wider. I can cover a lot more space with the side than the point. So I'm following the side of the sphere. Notice I am working in big circles. And then I'm going to pick up this area here very lightly. And then I'm going to work my way around the highlight. And then continue adding value. And I know that some of you are going to really have a hard time with this. You're going to lose your patience. Put your headphones on. Find some good tunes. It can be very relaxing and very meditative. The repetitive nature of this is almost like some people equate it to praying or meditating, because it's about repeating the same thing over and over again. And you can see that I do have some lines in there. You can see the lines, but I can go back over that and fix it. But I'm going to fill in this whole sphere with value. Okay, that's layer 1. Now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to squint, and I'm going to see that there's a shadow here. So there's like layer 2 and 3, and I'm going to keep going until this whole area gets darker. You can see here that this side follows the highlight this direction, and then this one is actually wrapping around towards this way. So you can see that I started to create that shape. And I'm going to continue filling this in. So now I'm going to go in and very lightly make a crisper edge. And notice I didn't put in the darkest darks yet. I'm going to leave that for last, after I've added value to all of my forms. Okay, so there's your sphere, and then right under here is your cast shadow. And I'm just going to add about 50% value there just to anchor it. And you notice that right between the cast shadow and the sphere itself, there's actually this reflected light that kicks up off the surface that it's sitting on. It creates this little highlight at the bottom. And that's super important to hold on to that. So I'm just going to emphasize that little reflective highlight there. And then here's that cast shadow. And notice that I'm building it up slowly.